Good morning, my name is Martin Mölter, and this is video number three in the series An American Experience. I'm talking about this book, An American Experience by Martin Bolt, which is me. I just choose Martin Bolt because it's easier to remember instead of Martin Mölter. Now, in the series, I go over various chapters of the book, and today, in this video number three, I'm going to go over a chapter called Self-Criticism and Freedom on page 14. It's a fairly long chapter, a little bit complex and stuff like that, and probably a lot of other books and essays and what other things can be written about this subject. Self-criticism and freedom. Now, when I came to this country, 2008, second time around, I noticed that. The promise of freedom and how free the American nation is, North American nation for that matter. And I noticed that it is part, of course, of the national anthem, Land of the Free, of the Brave. Let me see, what's the exact words? I forgot. But you know where I'm coming from with this. And I noticed me working in corrections, one assumption is that this land is more free than others, which I don't think is correct as a statement sitting on its own. The incarceration rate is staggering. Me working in corrections, I can notice that and can experience that firsthand. I'm working in corrections since 2008 here, and the incarceration rate of all Western countries compared shows you that the United States has, or is at least among the highest incarceration rates. Now, there's numerous reasons for that, of course, but one major difference I can tell you right away is the drugs, even the lighter drugs, weed, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, and of course alcohol, is viciously objected to in this country, no matter where you go and no matter what you do. Either it is at your work environment or simply while you're driving on the road. Now, compare this, since this is a comparison, it's called American Experience. It shows your, tells you and shows you a lot of experiences I make comparing these two continents, Germany/Europe and United States. Compare this to Europe or Germany in particular. If or as long as the driver is not intoxicated, and it is a qualifying factor, it doesn't matter how many drunk or high people are on that vehicle or in that vehicle, on the bus, on the van, in the car, whatever have you, because the driver drives and nobody else. So there's this big subject about open containers. Oh my God, open containers, you are the devil, you need to go to hell. No, I deserve my right to have 5 open bottles of beer sitting in the passenger car while somebody else drives happily along the road, listening to music or having a conversation with a drunk passenger. And this is how it's done in Europe. In America, they try to demonize that for whatever reason. You can drink as much as you want to at home or whatever, but as long as you're driving, even if you're a passenger, you cannot have any open containers in the vehicle. Oh my God. Same with drugs, sitting in the back seat, not me, but somebody sitting in the back seat, I'm driving, he's smoking a joint. So I'm not in his shoes, I'm not him. He has his own life, I have my own life. He can choose to do with his own life what he chooses to do. And that's just the end of the story. That's how they deal with that subject in Germany. And that's just the end of the story. So it already tells you from that angle that it is easy to see why the incarceration rate is so much higher in the United States than it is in Germany, because we don't throw people in jail for drinking, being a passenger in a vehicle, or smoking weed, being a passenger in the vehicle. We don't do that. In America, they do. So naturally, boom, you go to jail, and you get called 3 times or numerous times, boom, you go to jail for a longer period of time, and you need to go through programs, substance abuse programs, etc., what have you. So that's already, as far as freedom is concerned, less free. Which brings us to the next overall subject of the chapter itself, um, that America is the land of the free, or as they call it sometimes in news and articles and stuff like that. Sometimes you hear that term, and I need to really object to that. It might be great for Americans, but me coming from Europe, I really need to object to that. They call the President of the United States sometimes leader of the free world. And that is just beyond. That is just beyond, because it pulls the question, what is the free world in the first place? Nobody can tell me. How come, or who is next to the United States of America, if you assume that's a free country, who is the other part of the free world, and who is not, and why? So no matter where you look on this planet, you can make comparisons and stuff like that and say, okay, who's free and who's not free, and stuff like that. And I assure you that this term is very, very offensive to Europeans, because, it assumes, it implies that the United States of America president is also the leader of Europe, or is also the leader of Russia, is also the leader of Australia, is also the leader of the continent of Alaska, is also the leader of Canada, is also the leader of South Africa, and etc., etc., etc. That's what that implies. And that is just a term which is, doesn't ring a bell in the European ear, really. And that's just the end of that. And also on television, you always see the notion, or the phrase, what you deserve. That's another thing which sticks out to me, which you never hear somebody else say, or at least not where I came from, because who are you to tell me what I deserve? You don't even know who I am or what I do and stuff like that. So that's also very offensive, but it implies also to the audience, or to a particular audience watching that commercial, that you deserve whatever is advertised. I don't know. You might try, you might attempt to get this product or get it prescribed if it's a drug and stuff like that. But as far as what I deserve, who can tell what I deserve? I don't know. Another thing which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And other thing is the corporations' requirement to not discriminate as far as ethnic background is concerned, color, race, religion, sex, age. They cannot discriminate. Now, I would like to ask you, how come then they, on almost any online application I have ever done, and I have done quite a few applications, that they always ask for your ethnic background, your age. You hardly see anything about religion, but the other two I just mentioned, they always ask you that. Why? If they cannot discriminate on age, on race, on gender, why are there questions in the first place? That tells me that they are looking for specific people, which is fine. If you are a little company, you want to make sure all the people fit, with your little group and stuff like that. But then again, you never know until you hire the person. That's my personal opinion. He might not be able to put up a awesome resume or a nice background history as far as work is concerned and stuff like that. He might not just be able to do that. He might be lacking in that department, but doesn't mean he cannot be an awesome employee. That's all I'm saying on that subject. In Germany, the question, for instance, never came up about have you ever been convicted of any felony or any such similar term, a similar question. It never ever came up. It does not exist. I'm telling you, it does not exist. Yet here in America, even though they cannot officially discriminate against, certain factors, that question always comes up. They always try to ask you, have you ever been convicted of blah? And that's one reason is because the incarceration rate is so high in America. And the second reason is, I don't know. I asked a store manager once, what's up with that question? And he says his justification for having that in his application process was, well, we don't want our customers to be exposed to former criminals. That was his explanation. So I don't know if you have a current incarceration rate of 2 million people in prison right now or on probation. That cuts out a whole lot of people in the hiring process. Not to talk about people who served their term and are out of prison, yet their record indicates, oh, you have stolen a car once, or excuse me, you did whatever you did, but you have a conviction, and the conviction is in your file, and you are not to be hired. Boom, bang. So how many people cannot be hired by that particular company because of their past failures to follow the law? Must be quite a few, must go into the millions. So what do these people do? Low wage jobs, whatever. And that's quite sad, but that's also one aspect of a free country, how they treat situations or how they treat people who were incarcerated. And to that effect, America is not free. That's just another example, to my understanding anyway. And another subject of the free country is, there is, per what I am told, I have never been in, such a neighborhood where there's only Hispanic people, there's only black people, there's only white people, there's only Asian people, or whatever have you. There's a certain type of people in that particular neighborhood, and nobody else moves into that neighborhood. It's not really a law against it or anything like that, but it's just the case. And that's a new subject to me too, coming from Germany. Of course, if you are rich, no matter what color or race you are, if you are rich, you can pick your neighborhood consciously. You say, okay, that's a $5 million home. It has, 10 acres around, a little pond in the backyard and whatever have you. And, I choose there and I choose that, and there's no crime and it's all protected, and the police cars are circling around 24/7 to look for intruders and so on. And you have that choice if you're rich. But if you're not rich, if you're a common, person making, 50 grand a year together, all together with you two parents working and stuff, you are somewhat restricted. And apparently you don't move into black neighborhoods, or you don't move into white neighborhoods or Asian neighborhoods, apparently you don't do that. Apparently only white, blacks, and Hispanic and whatever have you move in that particular neighborhood. I don't know. For that reason, for that other reason, America, I feel, is not free, or at least not freer than other countries. Yet it is part of the, national identity. As far as I can tell, 1776, the all that was written because America was a new continent and they freed themselves from the English stranglehold. Obviously, they didn't have to, pay any more taxes to the English and all that, or Portuguese for that matter, whatever was the situation back then. So they wanted to be free of them because they want to go their own way. which is, why that is part of the national identity. But in today's world, looking at all that factors, incarceration rate, racism, money, it doesn't really hold up anymore, I feel. So that's just how I feel. Or at least it is a nice promise and a awesome thing to put out there and to raise your children on, because it's all over the place, school system, workplace, and stuff like that, land of the free. But it doesn't really apply. America is a modern democracy, but so is, almost the entire world. And if it is not a modern democracy, if you want to use that term loosely, then it is some sort of government. But my point is, whatever form of government it is, it doesn't mean it is less free than the United States citizens are. That's just how I feel, how I see that. So the advertisement agencies on television tell you, or are the first one to tell you how great this nation is, and politicians are the first one to tell you how great this nation is. And of course, it is a great nation. That's not the matter, the subject matter. It is a great nation, and it is a very free nation indeed. That I really feel that. But is it, or in my opinion, it is not freer than many other democratic governed country or other governance system country. You know, if you start with Dubai or India or even China, uh, everything is built in China. Everything which is sold in the United States is built in China. You know, as a general statement, but go to Hobby Lobby, go to Walmart, anything which is made of plastic or really how, anything which is below $100 is made in China. Simple. So the Chinese people really, came up in the last, 30 whatever years, and they have power too, and they have rich people too, but they have a different government system. You might call it communism or whatever not, but there is people, or there are many people who buy Cadillacs and high-end cars, Tesla, whatever not, because they are rich and they make their money within that so-called communist system. But it works. It works. They travel all over the place, and that's just one example. So we as Germans, of course, object to that term, the land of the free, a little bit more ferociously than many other countries would, because we started so many wars and lost so many wars, so many. Two world happens to be the biggest ones. So our upbringing is a little bit more defined by not putting our greatness so much out there. Of course, we are admired for our engineering prowess, our democratic system, political system, and stuff like that, the cleanliness, the punctuality, and all that. But we don't go out there necessarily advertising that and shout it out to the world. I like to do that sometimes in my, group of colleagues at work, but generally speaking, as German people, we have seen where such a lack of self-criticism leads us, simple as that. So that's that's video number 3. It's entitled Self-Criticism and Freedom. And I talked about a little bit about how American people feel freer, or say they are more free than other countries or other parts of the world. And I try to explain a little bit how that might not be the case in all aspects, because you are still restricted in America if you live in this country. The taxing system might be a little bit more towards the citizen, so he can do more without being bombarded by taxes and stuff like that. Not in all cases, but I feel that way. And the taxes are not as high. But then again, the health system is not as good as in many other European countries. Look at lists of health system and where the United States ranks in them, and you will sure find out that it's very, very low on the ratings. You know, always Denmark, Sweden, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, always in the top 10 more or less. And to that effect, America is also less free because not all people can go out and get health care as they wish, because they can't. It costs money. They don't have the money. They are not insured because it's not mandatory. For instance, in Germany, it is mandatory to have health insurance. It's not always the best, but you always have health insurance. Even if you don't have a job, you always have health insurance. And that's the promise. So you have a problem, you can go to the doctor, no matter what your work situation or your money situation is. In the United States, many are uninsured, choose to be uninsured because it costs. The wages are not that great in part of the country where you can have both. Support your family, build a future, and have good health insurance. So that's also another aspect where Americans or the American nation is not as free, or at least not freer as other countries. Let me put it this way. Okay, so much for that. American Experience by Martin Bolt. I was going over chapter 14. I mean, chapter is not numbered, the chapter, but it's video number 3, Self-Criticism and Freedom, page number 14. Thank you very much.